Hello, welcome again to the bourbon layer. I had to do a little bit of a bourbon segment here, otherwise my channel would be just birds. It wouldn't be bourbon and birds. Did a lot today with a couple of feeders added down below. Talked about some other stuff kind of out on the deck and what was going on that way. So I thought, hey, it's getting a little later into the evening and I don't have any grandkids or anything tomorrow morning, so thought this might be a good time to go over a few bourbons. Shout out to one of our watchers. Bourbon goes in, wisdom comes out. Yeah, maybe from one bourbon lover to another it might be wisdom. I'm not sure if it's wisdom to everybody. Three bourbons I was gonna taste today. I told you a while back, I think it was on the last video, maybe might have been on one of them that we had on Nancy and Craig's channel, that I'd picked up a couple of additionals. I got a George Dickel here, and this is what I called the Battle of the Georges. George Dickel is a Tennessee whiskey. Yeah, it's a Tennessee. Well, actually, when I bought it, you can see it says Tennessee whiskey. And honestly, I thought it was probably a Tennessee whiskey, but it's not. It's aged 8 years, but it is finest quality bourbon. So it's kind of odd. Tennessee, they don't do a lot with whiskeys and everything. They've got their own style that they just call Tennessee whiskey. I'm glad to see it's a bourbon. You know, a lot of the Tennessee whiskeys, unless you talk to a purist that is from Tennessee, fit the ideal of a bourbon. So, they use new charred barrels. It's over 2 years old, and the mash bill, I think, is 51% corn or greater too. So I'm not getting into that argument of whether, all Tennessee whiskeys are bourbons or where the cutoff is. I just know this meets the criteria and they threw bourbon on it. So all I care about is that it's got a great bourbon taste, a great whiskey taste, like I'm used to and everything. And I'm sure it's probably going to. The other one, this is the only one of the three of the bottles actually that I had opened at the time. And then this corner is the George Remus. Remus whiskey, I believe this comes out of Indiana. Yeah, this comes out of, is that Lynchburg, Indiana? It's Ross and Squibb Distilleries where it actually comes out of. George Remus didn't have anything to do with that. But what it is it's a really cool picture of I'll just say a badass looking bootlegger. He was widely known as the king of the bootleggers back in the day and everything. So the family, I'm sure, has lent his image and his lore to this whiskey, or to this bourbon. So, like I said, I'm always sucker for a bottle, what it looks like or anything like that. So George Remus, number 2. And of this three-way fight, the next one comes in is not a George actually, but it has George influence, is the old Forrester 1870. Now, I think I told you when I picked this up the other day that this drew my attention because in 1870, George Gavin Brown crafted these batches of whiskey in Louisville, Kentucky. And this is the original batch recipe from that time and everything. So Rich and I, we both like the old Forrester line, and so I thought I just about had to get that. So I could have waited, and we still might go back through and revisit the old Forresters and everything. There's a lot we like about them. A few things that we're a little sketchy on, but for the most part, it's a good brand of whiskey. I mean, it's old enough. Their laid claim is that they're the first bottled whiskey, to make sure that before even, like the bottling bonds, we're making sure the bourbon was bourbon, instead of who knows what it was, and maybe it'd kill you. So got that. So first one I'm going to try is the George Dickel. Now it proofs out at 90 proof. I've got that's a 90 proof. The George Remus is 94, and the old Forrester 1870 is also a 90 proof. So I'm going to throw the 94 Remus in the middle there to separate them. So, excuse me. George Dickel right off the bat. It's got a good color. It's it lays a little bit of an oil line on it and everything. It's not, it's a 95 or 90 proof, so it's not hot by any means. So, that's there's tinges of vanilla, a little bit of caramel, but it's fruity. I think it's it's probably, I think I got in this the other day. I think it's raisin, or maybe like a black currant, not a red currant, but I think it's mostly raisin if I get. But it's fruity. It's got a sweeter smell to it, so I'm gonna give it a shot. Like I said, this is a fresh open, so. Limited burn. Boy. Just some caramel notes. No fruity taste that I can catch. Yeah, I'm not getting anything that's like a wow factor off of that. It's a cheaper bottle. It was maybe $32 here in Iowa. It does have a little smoother down the throat. I think a lot of times I attribute that to a little bit older bourbon that's set there, and it's been in a barrel for 8 years, so I'll give it its statement. Oh shoot, I forgot my water, so I'm gonna leave for what'll be a couple seconds, but appear like nothing to you. And ta-da, I'm back. I didn't have my glass cup up here, so I'm doing the cheap, easy way out of a Walmart bottle. So next we're going to go for that Remus. I've had this opened a couple times, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty decent. So yeah, I'm not getting hardly anything on the nose, and you get that with the lower proofs, but I got a lot more. But that bottle was a neck pour off of that Dickel. Yeah, you can taste a little slighter proof off that. I get a little bit more heat down the throat. Not sure. That's a great thing about it. If you're not sure, you keep testing it. It's almost vanillas. That's all I'm getting off of it. I know you know. So you'll get into some channels, if you get into where you want to watch some of these guys that really get into studying it. They'll pull 15 scent and flavor profiles off of it. Not off this old guy's tongue from my years at working for the 3M Corporation down in Knoxville. It was an industrial tape plant, which sometimes that's just a fancy name for a chemical plant. We dealt with quite an array of highly, not, I won't say toxic, but concerning chemicals. And yeah, you wore a lot of PPE and everything in there when you're handling it, but the plant smelled like solvent the moment you went in, and you wore that smell out with you. So that does a lot to a guy's nose as he gets older, and it can to your palate too. You know, that's where they didn't want anybody eating any food on the floor and everything like that. And if we had to be out there, I never wanted to do that much either. It was hard not to carry around a coffee cup. And if you're no coffee drinker, that's like your security blanket holding that. But yeah, I got to it in the end where, I wouldn't do anything like that either. You could have water on the floor, which I thought was funnier than I'll get out, because water will absorb taste just like anything else will. But I'm glad I'm out of that place, so I don't have to adhere to those things. Yeah, I get a little bit of vanillas off the taste of that. And that's really about it. I'm not even catching any caramels. But I do like that it's got a little bit more burn to it. It's got more of a classic whiskey taste, almost like a bottled in bond. A bottled in bond, I always, will get a good throat feel from that it's got a little bit of heat. Next, I'm going with the the old Forrester that was made by George Garvin Brown would have been probably the master distiller, although they wouldn't have used that name back then in the 1870s. But that's who this dude would have been. So it probably, I know these on camera, you don't get as good a look, but of the three, this old Forrester has the better color. The others were really more of almost a yellow, but this one I get more golds and browns out of this, and got that good caramel look to it. I didn't do it with the Remus, but this one holds well onto the side of the cup, so that means it's just not going to wash straight down your throat, but you're going to get it to stay there. I actually do kind of get a little bit of a caramel smell off of that one, and I get really no fruity smells off of it. Just a caramel. It actually goes past the vanilla a little bit. So I think the other two are probably in jeopardy with this one. Yeah, nice heat going down. Not overpowering. If you drank 130 proof one, you know what I'm talking about. There's something in there. Yeah, that's more of your classic caramel. It goes past the vanilla. I'm not getting hardly any vanilla on the taste of it, so I think it's classic caramel is what I'm getting out of that. So with those three, quick ranking of them. First impression, I'd give Old Forrester the win on that, of the Georges. You could have yay clapping and everything. Old Forrester, you can't beat that old standard line. They are good stuff. Up next, I'm gonna say the Remus. Not as big as, it's got a cool story with it, but he doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, it's a good middle value bottle is what I would call that. And then rounding it out would be the George Dickel. With an 8-year statement and everything, I thought I would really like that. But it's good. But and I'd say for a $30 bottle of bourbon, it holds its own. It holds its own. I'm not one. I don't look to the bottom shelf very often that has the anywhere from. I've got some. I got a JTS Brown up there. I believe that was Rich got me that, but I've got a couple others that are just here. Just a second. I got this one time at a liquor store, and it's just like, you know, a lot of people talk about when you go in, make sure you're good to your liquor store. You know, try to buy something every time you go in. Don't just be that, you know, one of those guys that goes in and never buys anything. And like my main liquor store it's actually my local Hy-Vee, the one that's closest to me. That's where also I have my prescription drugs go to. So every time I get a prescription, I make sure I cut through the liquor store, go around the corner and get my prescription, and then I come back through and I've got my prescription, and they can see that I bought something local in their store. And I think that's important, even if you don't buy it directly from their counter, their register. It still shows that you're spending money there. But I got this quite a while back. It's a Kentucky Tavern, and I've got another local place here in Des Moines that I've got quite a few decent bottles from. And he brought it out one time. He says, I don't know what this is, but we only got one bottle of it in. And in Iowa, believe it or not, that Kentucky Tavern Special Reserve is an allocated bottle. Even though when they rang it up, it was $7.99, and I'm like, "Are you sure?" I'm looking at it, I'm like, "Wow, what is it?" But this has one, and Rich and I have both laughed about this. This has one of the most bizarre statements that you will see on a bourbon bottle. It says bourbon whiskey. You ready for this? Bourbon whiskey with natural flavors. Now, I'm not kidding. Look at that. Bourbon whiskey with natural flavors. What is a natural flavor that would go into... It's Glenmore Distillery in Louisville. I don't know anything about that distillery. And if this is one of your go-tos, I'm not trying to offend you or anything, but that's just a funny statement. You know, ants are could be a natural flavoring. Anything could be a natural flavoring if it's not plastic or something. So just bizarre. But this is when he brought that out and he was excited about it. This guy bought it, you know, because I'm thinking this is the same guy that one time had held a Weller 12 year back to ask me if I was interested in it. So when he's got something like this and he asks, "You interested in it?" Every day of the week I am. That's right. You know, I'm gonna make sure his stock is rotating and everything too. But when you're a one guy bourbon drinking machine, you know, I can't buy everything that comes through, but this was an easy one to get. So I don't mind that stuff. But going back to my original statement, yes, I tend to get up off of that bottom shelf if I'm buying for myself. I'm looking bottom price of about like $22, $25. Is where I start to get attracted to it and everything. So it's not a price snob, but that's just where I found that they work out for me. So like I said, that old Forrester, if you see that and you're looking for something, or another thing is as a gift, you look into those old Forresters if you're looking to buy somebody a bottle and everything. And we could get into those a little bit better, but as far as the subtleties of them and everything. But you've got the 1870, I got a 1910, 1920, and old Forrester Statesman. They've got 3 or 4 others out there too that they've got. But of those, I'll tell you what, if it's a new person into bourbon and you were going to look for some, I'd go for that 1870. Okay? If they're more of a seasoned bourbon, if somebody that's got even 7 or 8 bottles on their shelf to where they've tasted and drank some bourbons, you go for that 1920. That 1920 is 115 proof. It's not super hot. It's not into the 120s. It's gonna make you go woo, you know. So that's a good one to go after, and that's some bourbon wisdom there that Joe's handing out. So I got a little taste more of that George Dickel. Just like, I got to get rid of this. I'm not going to leave it behind. Last thing I wanted to show everybody tonight, I talked a little bit about my dad and the influences he's had on me, especially with bourbon choices and everything. I said I lean towards the Jim Beam stable. I have trouble not, when I see, you know, Jim Beam stuff, to not go after it and everything. And I'll show you. My dad was an avid whiskey decanter collector. And, you know, those that are older remember Jim Beam had all sorts of extravagant decanters and everything. So at one time, I think he had like 40 different kinds of decanters of animals and whatever, you know, cars, different stuff like that. A friend of mine, Ryan, down in Knoxville, he actually has got through auctions, I believe is where he got them. He got box cars and I didn't know they had a train set. Dad had never had any of those that I could recall, and he said the bourbon drinking out of it was just as smooth as probably the day it went in, and those decanters were 30 years old probably, but I think they were still sealed, so all the cork and everything did its job. You didn't let a lot of the alcohol out. I never got a taste of it. Never was down there when I was going to be driving them almost every time. So, but he said it was delicious, and I believe Ryan. He likes his bourbon too. So I got something here I wanted to show you. I kept a couple out of my dad's collection. See if I can get them spun around and not bust them. That'd just be the end of it. Political ones. These came out in 1976, and it was the Democratic donkey and the elephant from the GOP. And you know, I'm not a big political guy and everything, but these two were always my favorites on his shelf. And so when Dad passed and we were trying to figure out what are we going to do with all those, I did speak up and I said, I'd like to have these too. I don't know if any of the other kids took any. I think my brother Jeff took one or two maybe that he remembered as a kid too. So it's amazing. They still have, you see that paper around them. Now they're dirty. They would really need clean, but they're empty as a day is long, because when my dad and his brother-in-laws would get together to play cribbage a lot, they drank whiskey sevens, whiskey and 7-Up. And that was like their big thing. So these all got emptied out and everything, put into other decanters that those guys would drink off and everything. But yeah, I thought these still go on my shelf, and he's got one up there, an old bourbon one. You know, it's kind of behind. I'll get that down, show you guys too. That is like a homemade bottle, but I remember that was the one that he poured all these into, and when they would mix their drinks and everything. So that was super special to me too. So that's why these set up there on my shelf. I got enough top shelf stuff that kind of covering them up, but I got to find a better place for them. I've got some shelves with some of the stuff, that memorabilia from my dad that really means a lot to me, and I might have to put that in a video sometime and show you. But I'm running long, so I'm gonna end it right here. Remember, bourbon's great, but don't let bourbon rule you, okay? Peace. Hey, I'm back. Today's episode might actually deal with a little more birds than bourbon. Of course, we all know that there's gonna be some bourbon in this one. Anyway, I'm sitting in my new Four Seasons room, and a lot of viewers have talked about that, you know, maybe the reasons we have issues with the birds is that they're too close to our windows and everything. Well, I think the stickers actually have taken pretty good care of that. I'll show you those here in a little bit. But what I'm actually going to do today is, as you can see, there's a park access road behind us, and if you kind of zoom in, I'm not too far from the lake. You can see the blue right there. But today's project is I'm gonna go down, and you know, I had to wait till it was at least 90 degrees, you know, being a dumb old dude. You know, I couldn't do it a couple days ago when it was like 78. But I got a couple of bird hooks, and I'm gonna try to hook them on to this tree that I've got framed in. You can see, I think somebody had a hammock or something back there at one time. And I'm gonna put a shepherd hook on there, and then probably that smaller tree in the front of those others there, or maybe even this bigger one. And the reason I want to do that, and I'm going to put them up at a certain height, is that I can put one of those, and you can see the bigger tree there through the reflection a little bit of that window. I want to put cracked corn in one of those. One of our viewers that actually is in the state of Iowa, not too far from where I grew up, and I have a sister that lives in Oskaloosa. She lives in Oskaloosa now. I was going to say the outskirts, but it's not. They said put some cracked corn out and put it at least 15 feet away, and then you can throw some on the ground. That'll attract them. I think that'll work. I don't have a huge sparrow problem myself, but I do right now because it's hot. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't want to go outside, so they don't fill their feeders. Since I'm a loyal filler, I end up with all the excess birds as well. So I've had a fair amount of sparrows have found my feeders, and they are completely empty. I mean, everything is gone every single evening when I go out there. So I'm thinking if I put a couple feeders down there, not only will it'll pull some of the sparrows away right now, but I can also, that'll be a good area for the squirrels to eat and everything. And I've got a tree really close. You can barely see it. It's the one in the center. It's close to the fence, and I might actually put a feeder over that way and put some corn, and I believe it's buckwheat that you can for attracting and feeding the deer. I know I'm going to get some hate on that you don't feed the deer and everything, but this is a park right behind me, and they are fairly tame deer here. I had a mama and her twin fawns came up right next to our fence out there and was kind of foraging around. So they're looking for stuff. So just something that I can do in the winter as best I can. I've got a hillside going down to it off of my house. So in the wintertime, I don't know about shoveling my way out there when it gets snowy, but we'll see how it goes. But anyway, I'll take you along on that ride, and we'll go see what we can do there. Hey, I thought I'd share this. If you haven't looked at these drill holders on Amazon, man, you really need to. They've got some of them that are only like 3 wide, 4 wide. I went with a 7 wide. I've got an additional 4 wide that I took off to put here. It didn't match naturally with the studs in the wall. So I just cut a piece of wood that was a width of this thing so I could screw it on and then hit the studs so it's super secure. This is where I talked about, I got my old Craftsman's. They all still work great and everything. Bought those batteries. There's the 2 batteries I bought. You can see the difference in those. But the biggest thing is I've had, and some of you might have one, I've had this old, just a second, get it spun right. I've had this old Milwaukee drill. I bought that, I think I was 23 years old. Old 12 volt. And at the time, Ryobi had the 7.2, and that was about the biggest. So everybody's like, man, what are you doing? That thing, 12 volt, got more power than you'd ever need. And it had these old batteries that naturally they all went out, but I held on to that drill for a while. And then lo and behold, on eBay, I was able to find 2 of these where they had remanufactured them. And instead of NiCads in them, it is nickel metal hydride batteries in it. So they last like twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as the old ones. But I just got it so I could just run that old bear every once in a while just for nostalgia. And it runs great. Those old drills, if you remember, they kind of got that smell to them when you run them. You can just smell the electrical connections heating up. So anyway, I thought I'd share that. That little thing, I printed that on my 3D printer. It's super nice. You can mount it on the wall, but I just use it on the shelf to keep all my small Milwaukee batteries going. That's what I've went with as I'm upgrading. I'm going with 12 volt. As a homeowner, I don't really need the super high power. I did get these extra long life batteries though, and I never run out of juice now. So thought I'd just share that. Okay, here's a quick overview of what I'm going to use to do this project. You can see I got the shepherd hook there. This is the brand I got. I believe I bought that off of Amazon. Thought about using it on my deck, and I didn't realize that the way the bracket was, where it's multi-positional, but because of the screws, I didn't have a good way to put it on my railing, and it wasn't gonna fit just how I wanted. So I've got a couple of these. Been wondering what I was gonna do with them. Thought, hey, what about the trees? So I can put them down there. I thought about it. Came with, of course, with these little bitty screws that nobody ever uses. They're just too small. So I thought about I was going to use some lag bolts, and the reason I was thinking the lag bolts is then I could run them in, and I knew I'd have that nice big head if I ever had to take these back out. Unfortunately, I don't want to drill all the holes out, and they're just too big. They just don't fit in there. So I went and grabbed some decking screws. I grabbed some 2.5 inch. I believe that's enough. It'll go through the bark and catch some wood. And there, I got the square hole. I have better luck with those, getting those to run in, especially to run back out if you ever have to take them out. I highly doubt I'm ever going to take this off, because I could always just take the shepherd hook off, and then you would just have this, you know, sitting on the side of a tree, and nobody's ever going to notice that. So that's the tools I'm going to use. I got my old trusty Craftsman impact driver. I've had this for a lot of years. Craftsman doesn't even make this kind anymore with this type of battery. But if you've got this stuff, I don't know if you've ever looked it up. You know, the batteries go out on you, even the lithium. You can pick up batteries that look almost like them. Got the same function, showing the battery strength and everything. I got these. I got 2 of them off of eBay is where I actually got them. They sell them on, and they snap in just as well. They sell them on Amazon as well, but they seem like they were just a little bit cheaper on eBay, so that's what I went with. And they work just as well, and they're lithium batteries, and it just brings your drill back to life. So if you've put a lot of money into a set of drills, and especially if you've got like cordless saws and everything go with it, make sure you check on your batteries once they start to go out, and find those generic batteries on eBay or Amazon. Brings your whole tool set back to life. I've had these tools for a long time. I haven't had any of them. I've got like 3 drills. I've got like 2 or 3 saws, and I don't want to get rid of them. So that's what I ended up going with, and hope that's a nice tip that you can do too. And I think these batteries actually were better than my original Craftsman ones. So, and they're big. I mean, they got a lot of life. So that's where we're at. I'm going to head down to the trees. Okay, I'm down at the tree. I started putting the bracket on. I just got 2 screws in there. I just made sure that I got it fairly level. I have to pull it back a little bit when I screw that back in. It's a little off, but that's not going to be a big deal, because the feeders are going to hang down, and gravity will hold them down straight how you want it. I put this at a level. Got one of these. That when I put, sorry about that jumping around nonsense, but when I put these on, oh, I just found out something. I have to take the bracket back off, because as you can see, that notch where it would set against a tree, well, that notch is in the back of that bracket. So I got to run this back out. I got to have the rod on when I put it on. So I'm going to correct that. That way this will go down in. But where my thought was before that, you want to make sure that your hook is at a height that you can actually reach it yourself to put a feeder on, depending on what kind of feeder. The ones I have, I could put a chain on them if I wanted, but I'm going to keep them up high to where it'll work better for the birds, and we'll go from there. I'll fix that and I'll be right back. Okay, bingo, got that thing on there. What I like about these is they are adjustable, so I can move this back and forth depending on where I want to have it, because you can see there's my view. So you put that hanger down there from setting chairs, you should be able to see this one pretty good. I'll put the other one on, and we'll get a couple feeders on it, and I'll come back. Okay, so here are the 2 feeders I'm going to use. These are older vintage ones. You can tell how really sturdy they are. They don't use wires. They bend up the rods to hold them in place, screwed. It's all engineered wood. I thought, no, these don't actually have who made them and everything. I got a brown one that says like Birds Unlimited or something. But I got these, good friend of mine down in Knoxville runs an auction service, online one. And he had these, and I just couldn't pass them by. So I bid till I won them, because I wanted the grading and everything. Everything's so strong on these. I figured these would be a couple of good ones to be down here in case I miss bringing them in every once in a while. I'm sure the raccoons are going to find them, and they're going to look for them every single time. So if I'm only putting cracked corn and the cheap stuff in them, I know I've got rock here, and you can see it's kind of weedy right now. I need to spray that down. But yeah, and I know I'm going to get, you know, seeds down in there, and that's just how it goes, you know. It's my yards are for the wildlife and everything, so, and just for me to look. As you can see, you know, up, you can't really see the incline, but I got quite the hill going up. So this is not really a recreational yard unless you're sledding. The girls like to sled it a little bit, but it's kind of a nuisance yard, really. It's not good for much. So I'm gonna find a good reason to use it. And it's the back side of our house. I don't know if we even got any pictures of it, but eventually I'm gonna enclose that. You can see it gives you when you put one of these in, it gives you a full roof over the top of it. So that's, if I wall that in, it'll just be another room down there. But anyway, back to birds. This is the mix that I use. I'm not gonna put this in it, but just this one time. It's a high-end mix. I use KT's Fruit and Nut Blend. I add in my own extra peanuts to it. A lot of times I'll buy what's called Cardinal Mix, which is just black sunflowers and you know what it is, those little white ones. Safflower, I believe it is. That way the cardinals have something that will stick around a little later into the afternoon, because cardinals like to really eat in the evening. And I always try, if I'm taking my feeders in early, I always make sure I put some on a railing for them so they get their evening snack before they take off. So I'm gonna partially fill these, hang them up, go up and see how the view looks. Yeah, you think I got raccoons? Look at that big old pile of poop there. Little pile. There's big chunks back there. They drive me crazy, but the raccoons we have around here, you should see their coats. It's like they actually went to a fur store and bought them. They're just gorgeous. But you know, they're not the nicest animals to have around, so I definitely discourage them from sticking around. So here's one of the feeders. I've got it on the side of the tree, kind of hanging out that way, but I think we can easily see it. The other one's down there, hanging up nice, and I'm headed up. Okay, I am back in my chair. And as you can see, there's my one feeder down there. And I'll scroll over here. Let me knock the windows out of the way. You can see, I'm zooming in on, there you go. There's the other one. Great placement. We'll be able to see them from the couch here. Sitting in those chairs that we set in sometimes in the evening. And the sun is coming in our eyes there to the west. The person, especially in the window, the chair closest to the window, the same thing. We'll be able to easily see those two. I got one more of those feeders. I'm probably I don't have another rod, another shepherd hook. I'll get one of those, and I'm gonna hang it back for the deer to feed on. Okay, if you like it, go ahead and subscribe, give me a like. Drop me comments on this. I love to hear from the birders as well as the bourbon enthusiasts. Okay, so I had a viewer give me a tip on keeping the hornets out of my Oriole feeder. You can see it's about a third to half full, and I washed it last night, and of course they've pooped a little bit on the edges, and that's okay. But they told me that they use like Vaseline or vegetable oil just around the edge, and that the hornets don't like that. So that's what, if I can get some on my finger. I hate this doing that. Anybody else like the Vicks that you'd rub on your chest and everything? Man, that stuff as a kid drove me crazy, and I don't even like putting it on myself. So anyway, I'm gonna try that. Just gonna put just bad cinematography. Tell you what, I'm gonna put the phone down for a second and do this right. Okay, I'm back. Mr. Blue Jay's giving me the business because he's wanting to eat while I'm down here. Anyway, yeah, I must have chased 50 birds away when I came out this time. They really are morning feeders. Anyway, I don't know if you can see, I put it about 1/4 of an inch down, a real thin layer, and I tried to put it like on the edge of this feeder too. So I'm gonna check on that a few times today and see how that works. As you can see, a little bit of Vaseline on that. Doesn't bother the Orioles. There was 2 females. If you saw real quick at the beginning, one of them flew off. There's the bird decals stickers that are on there. Seem to be doing the trick. We've got them on our big window as well, but you know, with all the birds out there, I've been bugging them. I'm letting them eat.
Not too bad. It's 5 o'clock. The raccoon's already here for his dinner. This is the bird feeder we hung up. Don't really look like the kind of bird we were hoping for.
I've never seen
He just is so cute.
I've just never seen a masked bird before.